There's something kind of magical about an EFI system, especially the new ones that have auto-tuning features, right? And last year at the SEMA show, our friends at Holley showed us the Avenger series of EFI systems, and we thought the throttle body version would be a great way to add electronic fuel injection with self-tuning capability to our 1973 Pontiac 400 V8 that was installed in this Firebird. Holley's new EFI systems come in 3 basic flavors. You've got the Avenger, which is a throttle body and more basic system. The step up from that is the HP series, which adds some additional input and output channels. And then for all-out race or a lot of different input and output channels, you can move up to the Dominator series. We chose to go with the Holley Avenger system, which is a 4-barrel throttle body type fuel injection system. It comes with pretty much everything you could want. It's a very, very complete kit. This one has not only the throttle body, but it comes with all the various sensors that it requires to run. It comes with the electronic control module, which, or ECM, which is the brain box behind this thing. There's also a handheld tuning device, which plugs into the ECM and allows you to communicate with it without the need for a laptop computer. It also provides the entire fuel system, meaning a high-pressure EFI electric fuel pump, and they even include sections of high-pressure hose, clamps, the hardware you're going to need, and the wiring harnesses. It's really a very complete kit. We're primarily using this system to control the fuel management, but it is advanced enough to where it can control the ignition timing as well. You just need to have a distributor that is compatible with the EFI box. In our case, we're going to use an MSD Pro Billet distributor, and it's going to handle the engine timing on its own, but you do have that option. Installation is not very difficult, but that doesn't mean it's not complex. There's a difference between simple and complex and easy and hard. We started by welding in the oxygen sensor into our exhaust pipe. The system comes with a wideband O2 sensor, which provides real-time feedback for the ECM. And to install that, you might need some special tools to drill a hole in your exhaust system. In our case, we drilled it and then used the bung that came with the kit, and we welded that together. Now, if you don't have access to a welder, any exhaust shop can do this for you. They're not very expensive to have this installed, but that's about the extent of any fabrication that you're going to need to do when installing this system. We wanted this to be a really clean install, so we used the HTP TIG welder to TIG weld in that plug into our exhaust system. And this way, it makes a really nice fine bead. You want to position this too on the pipe so that the O2 sensor is in the top vertical portion, so that moisture doesn't collect in that tube and rust that connector or rust the sensor. To install the fuel pump, we tapped into the original hard lines and cut them before and after our fuel pump installation area. We used an Eastwood flare tool to put some flares on the hard lines and then connected rubber hoses to the hard lines that would go to the pre-pump filter, the actual fuel pump, and the filter after the pump. And it's important to use the supplied high pressure line because after the pump, everything could see 30, 40 PSI easily coming out of this fuel pump. So you want to make sure you use EFI approved hose. We actually changed that configuration a little bit when we finalized this install because we didn't like the way the hose was kind of bent. So we added a little more hard line to our system and minimized the amount of rubber hose. That's just a safety thing. You want to keep your hose usage to a minimum, but anything that can vibrate or move, you want to make sure you've got rubber hose between hard lines and the pump. So this is our new Holley throttle body that comes with this Avenger EFI system. And it's pretty cool because they've got all the components of an EFI system in one piece. This, if you look at it upside down, looks basically just like a standard Holley square bore throttle body, throttle plate. And the linkage on the side, this is just like a carburetor, So if you know how to set one of those up, you know how to set this thing up, you're halfway home. But the additions are a fuel inlet here, and a fuel regulator, pressure regulator, and the fuel outlet. So here's where your fuel lines connect, and you got to run a return line now back to the tank. On the top side, you've got your 4 fuel injectors, and these just shoot fuel right down the hole whenever you hit the gas. Pretty cool. It's pre-wired, ready to go. You've got a couple of plugs for sensors. This is a throttle position sensor, so you can see when I open the throttle blade, that arm moves, and that tells the computer where the throttle is. Got a connection here for the intake air temperature, and this is the main harness connector for the fuel injectors. And then looking at the front of this unit, you have your idle control motor here, and there's a little passage up on the top of this, and this motor opens and closes this passage, which dictates how the idle responds. And you've got some vacuum ports. This one here is full manifold vacuum. This one down below is ported vacuum for your mechanical vacuum advance on your distributor. And another one back here. This is PCV vacuum. So, you know, a lot of things that are similar to a carburetor. There's some plugs in place. One here, got 2 up on top by the injectors. You got another one on this side. Those are places where you can put a fuel pressure gauge, where they have an optional fuel pressure sender, which will tell the ECM what the fuel pressure of your system is. The throttle body installs basically just like the carburetor. You put the gasket down, drop the throttle body in place, and then tighten the nuts down on the studs. And you have to reconnect your throttle linkage to it. Next, we mounted our MAP sensor. It's the manifold absolute pressure sensor on the firewall. We used some riv nut inserts that you can rivet to the firewall, and they provide a threaded hole to mount this sensor. You can put this anywhere you want. It's got to be under the hood somewhere, but we thought it would be a clean way to do it to the firewall using those inserts. Our Professional Products crosswind intake manifold had a nice spot right in the front where we could install the coolant temperature sensor, which tells the ECM what the temperature of the engine is. The next task was to mount the Avenger EFI ECM. We found a flat spot on the driver's side inner fender well and tapped some holes and used the supplied rubber feet to mount this thing solidly right there under the hood. You want to make sure that your wiring harness will reach all the sensors when you're choosing your location for this. You also want to make sure that it's out of the elements, it doesn't get wet, and that it's not right next to a hot exhaust manifold. But other than that, you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to mounting this thing. Once we had that securely mounted, we started to run the wiring harness around underneath the hood and make all the connections. The connections are pretty simple. The harnesses are pre-built, so they just plug in, and then we had to do a power connection. This thing gets 12 volts right from the battery, and it also needs a 12-volt signal that is active when you turn the key on and while the engine is cranking. And that's critical because this thing needs to run the fuel pump during the cranking process. So you want to make sure to test your 12-volt source that it's hot while the key is in the crank position. Very, very important. One nice feature about this system is that it will control an electric fan based on the temperature of the engine. You can program what temperatures you want the electric fans to turn on and turn off at. So we use this system to keep the car cool by controlling those fans. Connecting the harness is fairly simple because all of the plugs are unique. They are all weather pack type connectors, which are very high quality, you know, OE kind of stuff. But you can't plug the wrong connector into the wrong receiver. So everything only plugs in one way. One area we took a little extra time was in creating the hard fuel lines that attach to the throttle body. We bent some custom hard lines that come up from the fuel supply, go behind the motor, and feed the input side. There's a short rubber hose that goes from the hard line to the throttle body, and then there's a return line that goes out of the throttle body. We made a custom hard line for that also, and it feeds back and returns the unused fuel back to the tank. This can probably be done a little bit quicker using a flexible hose, but we wanted to make everything nice and clean and undetectable, so we blacked out those lines and hid them nicely behind the engine.